March 13th, 2020 was a day where many lives changed. Many lives changed very quickly. No one expected it, right? The beginning of what we came to know as the pandemic. And the measures that we then experienced were called for and held to because of the sake of safety and the health of humanity. And we know that human beings aren't very prone to deal with change very well. We know it's difficult to deal with even this the changing gas prices or the reservation we're going to have for dinner. But the pandemic really invited us to a lot of change very quickly. And maybe it seems a bit far away from us at this point. Maybe I'm speaking for myself, but it really wasn't all that long ago. In that time, we had to deal with many things being taken away from us. Our full schedules, sporting events, and all kinds of entertainment, going out to restaurants, and doing all kinds of things we were used to doing in person. We had to do them virtually. And how was that change for us? How did we adjust to what we then come to understand as the new normal? Well, in that time, it was good to make prudent decisions, to really focus on, what is really most important, what is necessary. Because it was in focusing on the necessities that really helped us to move forward through our days and living in such a different way. It really was a time when we had to focus on, what are our needs versus what are simply our wants. And I thought about that crazy time as I was looking at our gospel and considering our gospel today. The master comes to the servant very abruptly. He says, give a full account of your stewardship. And the servant, who had been acting rather dishonestly, he realized, how I'm going to live is not going to, how I've been living is not going to work in the future. I'm going to have to change in order to live and to live well. And so he figures out a way of providing accommodations for himself, so when they let him go, he would have a place to live and be. This dishonest steward acted prudently and quickly, focusing on the necessities so that he could secure, his future. And Jesus makes a comparison and asks, if we can do this well and easily with worldly things, well, what about when it comes to the heavenly things? I think Jesus in the gospel today invites us to this, to focus immediately and intentionally on the key things that help to build up faith. Because it is faith that ultimately will provide a future for us in heaven. How often do we immediately and intentionally focus in on the necessities of our faith? And then, as Jesus points out in the gospel, maybe what gets in the way of us building that faith? In the gospel, Jesus talks about mammon. Whether we serve mammon or we serve God. And we ask, what is mammon? Other than a reference to a good Bob Dylan song, mammon is really anything we put over and above God in our lives. From the Hebrew word, it literally means that in which we place our trust. So we could say the things that we're living for provide us happiness and security. Well, back to the pandemic. When everything changed so quickly, we had to give up so much. Did we figure out what our mammon was? How do we figure out what our mammon was? Well, a good way of knowing is maybe when we had to give up a particular thing, what happened to us? What happened inside of us? Certainly it's good to grieve the loss of good things. That's important to do. But when losing something really radically shifts our world, how we are really doing, well then maybe it's mammon. Yes, our world is good. Yes, we are good. But Jesus says that we should live for God alone, because that's the way to holiness, and that's the way to heaven. And Jesus didn't just call us to that, but he lived that. As he did himself give up the entirety of his life for us and for the love of God on the cross. So brothers and sisters, who are we serving in our lives? And we can look to our actions, we can look to our lifestyles to figure that out. The reality is, it's one thing to assess that, maybe right here and now, or sometime today or this weekend. It's another thing to make decisions, that kind of correct our course, immediately and intentionally. And it's even another thing to stay on that course. Now that things have, come back to normal, more or less, how many of the changes that we made at the beginning of the pandemic, which maybe brought about some good things for us, more family time, more time to focus on things that are really, truly important, how much have we gone back to just the former ways? How many of those changes then changed? Because I think with a dishonest steward, he acted prudently once and well, and Jesus commends this. But he really would have had to kept doing so. Life is the continual journey of choosing God. And God does provide good things for us on this earth. But he wants himself to be the highest of those good things. Not just in our intentions, but in really and truly how we live. So brothers and sisters, let us be grateful for all that we have in our lives, all that God has given to us. But today may we commit and strive to put God first and to live for him alone. We have in our lives made decisions at different times to immediately and intentionally make changes when our health is on the line. And that's important to do. But can we also make decisions that intentionally and immediately put God first when he calls us to do so? May our celebration today, may our celebration especially of this Eucharist, give us insight, wisdom, peace, and strength as we continue to commit to the journey of life and faith.